Welcome to Classrooms Beyond Borders, a day in the life. I'm your host, Cami Cannikins. I'm an educator from Canada, and I know that access to quality education isn't a level playing field. In this podcast, we're going on a journey to explore the realities of schooling in less developed nations. Join me as we explore the real lives of teachers, students, and community leaders in less developed nations and discover how their experiences can challenge and inspire us all. Today on Classrooms Without Borders podcast, we are going to Uganda, and we are with Cyrus Muwanga, who is the director of Grand Maria School, which is a private school in the outskirts of Kampala, the capital city of Uganda. It's a private school that takes national students. So the students from your school, Cyrus, are from the surrounding area. They're not foreign students or international students. They are just students from Kampala. So welcome. And why don't you tell us a little bit about how many students you have at your school? Give us a little picture of your school to start with.
Yeah, thank you, Cami. I'm excited to be part of this podcast. Once again, my name is Cyrus Muwanga, the director of Grand Maria School in Uganda. Well, let me give you a brief background. We took over the school in 2012, and in 2012, we had about 138 children who were paying about $30 as school fees. In those last 12 years, our school has grown. We currently have about 700 children, and the school fees has also grown from $30 in 2012 to about $350, which is 1,350,000 Uganda shillings.
So what ages are how young are your students? How old are they when they leave your school?
Our school takes in from nursery to primary 7, which is usually grade 7 in Canada or the USA. So we start from about age 2 to about 11, 12 years as they leave our school.
Okay, so tell us, Cyrus, about how large your class sizes would be. How many students would you have in a class? And that might change as students are younger or older. What would that look like?
So, again, Grand Maria School was one of those ramshackle school, beaten down school, which we took over. But our goal and plan and intention was to make it one of the best schools in Uganda, which we are doing very well as we speak. Our class sizes have about 25 to 30 children per class. But when you compare that with the public schools, a class in Uganda can easily and comfortably have 100 children per class. So because we are trying to be one of the best, we are trying to have small class sizes so that the teacher is able to reach every child.
That certainly does make a difference in class size. Now, Cyrus, when I visited your school, and yes. I recall, I think the first time we were there was maybe 2016, 2017. And shortly before we had come, within a year or two before, I remember you telling us about how the pit latrines had imploded, like they had just caved in. You'd had a serious incident, and the pit latrines they disintegrated, poof, they fell into the ground. And when we had come, I have this really interesting image in my mind. And I remember you were so frustrated because you had this new toilet facility. And the young children were so fascinated because there was a flush pull handle on the toilet, and they would run and they would flush the toilet, and you were so frustrated, but you understood how excited they were because having a flush toilet was such a luxury. Can you tell us what that might look like now at your school, with perhaps even like your toilet facilities compared to what it might look like at a public school in Uganda?
So back then when you visited, we were just trying to construct our new flush toilets, but 90%, actually not even 90%, it is higher than that. 95% of all schools in Uganda still have pit latrines because it's what we grow up knowing, but also that is what we as a country are mostly able to afford. At Grand Maria School, currently we now have flush toilets, but even with a school which is growing so fast like ours, it still amazes all our children because even they themselves at their homes currently, 90% of them have pit latrines. The funny story is on one of those trips when you people visited, we hosted, I think it was Harold's sister who visited, and she could not believe that she had to squat to go to the latrines. And when she came out, she was so frustrated. But her frustration was so funny to all of us that up to this day, everyone still laughs at that. Her pain was something that was funny to us because 95% of all of us use pit latrines and we find squatting normal. We actually feel like the flush toilets are a bit abnormal in Uganda. So, just a facility like flush toilets is something that makes a school great, all expensive, or to be termed as a middle income school.
So, Cyrus, thank you for putting that into perspective. And that is so interesting as international guests or visitors. I think that was the first time that she had ever used a toilet where she had to squat. And that was a flush squat toilet. And so for you in Uganda, that was a super innovative thing. Yet for a North American visitor, it was like, what's going on, right? Someone who's only ever sat on a toilet and not had to squat.
Because of that very experience, immediately your team left, we thought about trying to make at least the visitors toilet international, such that when we have visitors like you from North America, maybe they can feel comfortable having a sitting toilet. So because of that experience, we actually have one sitting toilet so that we don't have an incident like that. Because I still remember her face so well. She was so frustrated that she had to squat and she felt her knees were going. It was so funny and yet sad.
It's funny that we're talking about toilets, although on almost every episode we talk about the toilet and the latrine situation, and it seems a little funny. However, I can't think of something that is more quintessential that describes the differences in countries and infrastructure and experience than what might happen in the toilet facilities. So, Cyrus, for your 700 students, I know that you have a program where you feel it's very important to feed your students as well. So, yes, they pay tuition. Tell us about the type of meal program that your students receive.
Our children, because we are trying to raise the level of quality of school that we have, and also putting into consideration the fact that the school fees that we collect is not able to run the school well, we as a school intentionally ask the parents to pack something for their children for breakfast, which is at 10 a.m. And then for us, we provide lunch and evening tea and a snack. The public schools have breakfast and lunch provided for them.
And so, what would typical lunch at your school be? And would that be different than maybe lunch at a public school that's provided?
Yes. In a public school, 99% of the time, the food is called posho, crushed corn to make that white substance. In Kenya, it's called ugali. In Uganda, it's called posho, and then beans. And then for breakfast, usually they provide porridge for them.
And would that be similar to the meals at your school?
Again, because we are trying to attract middle income parents, our meals are a little better than that because we are able to provide rice some days, posho other days. We have a little matoke, these are green bananas.
Matoke, yes, the green
Yes.
bananas. Those are for cooking.
Yes, the green bananas for cooking. And then we can provide chicken once a week. But for a school like ours to be able to provide chicken, that puts us in one of the top schools in Uganda to be able to provide chicken once a week.
That is, again, a great way for us to kind of think about what school is like there. So that's a really good description. Thank you for that, Cyrus. So you have your facility, and now I know you have electricity. Is it reliable? Are there blackouts? How is your electricity situation?
Well, in Uganda, electricity is not something you can fully rely on because even just before I came onto this call, we had a blackout. So the good thing is that 99% of the schools do not rely on the availability of electricity to run because we don't have air conditioning machines or heaters that mostly must have electricity. So even if electricity goes off, we are still able to continue the teaching. It's not something that really affects us a lot, but we definitely have several blackouts in a week. It affects the boarding schools so much because they usually have night preps where if power goes off, they are unable to have their lessons. That is something which affects mostly the boarding schools. But Grand Maria School is a day school. So by the time the blackouts are able to affect us, which is during the night, the children are already back to their homes.
So, Cyrus, how do students get to your school? Do they walk? Is there a method of transportation? Tell us about that.
We have all sorts of children in our school. For example, we have the 30 children that we help sponsor as a school and from friends like you. Those are usually staying very close to the school and they may sometimes be able to walk to school. But of recent, we were able to buy several school vans. So most of our children are picked up in the morning by the school vans and then dropped back home in the evening. And again, there's a very big percentage of children who have their parents drop them at school. And then in the evening, they pick them up to take them back home. But in a public school, let's say a school which is Uganda Free Primary School, most of the children have to walk, let's say, 1 or 2 miles to get to school, and this is the norm. It's not out of this world for them or for us who have done that. It's something that we do and we think that's how it should be. The children who use vans like in our school are considered to be from middle income parents.
And would they be from further away?
Yes, they will be from farther away. What we decided to do was to focus on quality education. So our parents come from, about 10 to 15 miles away from our school. But because most of them have transportation, they are able to drop their children to school. So in public schools, most of the time the children do not have to walk maybe more than 2 miles because even then they would have another free primary school near them. In the past, when the schools were very few, that's when people or students would walk maybe 5 or 10 miles per day to get to school. For example, when our parents are sharing their stories, they try to make it look like they had to climb mountains, go through rivers, and all that. That's really not an exaggeration because today, when they take you back to where they studied from and they show you the distances, it's a 20 minutes drive. So, which means when you are walking, it would take you, 2 to 3 hours to reach your school and then 2 to 3 hours to get back. This also still happens deep in the villages, up country, let's say 200 miles from Kampala. We've seen stories on TV of children who walk 5 miles to and from school.
And
But in Uganda, it's still considered normal.
you're talking miles, not kilometers, just to make sure.
Yes.
So that's super helpful for us to understand how that all works. And as we've heard on our podcast, there is such a difference between rural schooling in any country and then schooling that's closer to the city. Yet, when I think about your school, when you opened the gates to your school, tell us about the road that would go past your school. Like, tell us about the street and the road infrastructure, just a little side story there about the streets that your vans would drive on.
The beauty about our school is that it's somehow on a paved road these days, but a few meters away from us, all the vans go through dirt roads, Maram roads. And for example, our vans have the biggest issue is that they always need repairs because the roads are not tarmacked and they have potholes. Sometimes the vans actually get stuck because they go into areas where they are unable to come back from when it has rained.
And so, having driven on some of those roads into the areas where people's homes are, those are quite the traverse. And so, I
Yes.
can absolutely see where your vans would get
Yeah.
stuck. So, the vans that you have are they Toyotas? So you have the Toyota vans that you have bought. They're not new vans; they're secondhand. They would come from China or Japan. They've been used well before they
They've been
come
used
to.
for about 20 years before they come to Uganda as new cars. And even then, when they come to Uganda, you have to buy them at about 15,000 US dollars to get just one van. And this is one which has already worked in Japan for 15 years, and it is usually in good condition, but once it reaches Uganda and the roads that we have, it then depreciates quickly. The biggest expenditure in the transport department goes to repairs.
Tell us maybe about what time is your school start time, and then how long does it go to in the day?
Now, my school, again, because we are trying to target the middle income earners, the middle income earners are always trying to reach town. That's where they work from. So, our school is open from 6 a.m., and parents start dropping the children as early as 6 a.m. Well, our lessons actually begin at 8 a.m. But for you to create some kind of convenience for the parents who are dropping their children so that they are also not late for work, you need to open school as early as 6 a.m. so that those that are able to drop them as early as possible, they do. Our teachers are expected to be at school at 5:50 a.m.
All of them.
All of them. And then they are only allowed to leave school at 6 p.m.
That is a long day.
The children have their lessons from 8 a.m. up to 4 p.m.
And then after school, is there a time when you provide supervision for the children while the parents you're waiting for them to pick the students up as well?
Exactly. Again, a school that is trying to reach such clientele is supposed to provide caretakers, and these are usually our teachers because they have to leave at 6 p.m. anyway. So we are able to continue staying with the children at that time. They're usually doing their homework, some are doing their after school clubs until their parents are able to pick them up. But even then, even if a parent is delayed in town, we have a teacher who should remain in school until the parent picks the child.
We would call that here before and after school care.
Yes.
Sounds similar.
But in a public school, the lessons begin at 8 a.m. and they end at 4 p.m. And most of the children just walk to their homes. It's like a floodgate where once the time for going back home reaches, all the children scatter and just start walking back to their homes.
So another one of the differences between having a private school and
Yes.
a public school there. Could you tell us maybe how compensation or wages might compare with a teacher at public school versus your school, or just teachers in general in Uganda?
Yes. So this is something that I know you've already heard about from most of your other people you've interviewed. In a school like Grand Maria School, where we are trying to pay very, very well, the most highly paid teacher will get about $300. And those would be about 20% of the teachers. And then 80% of the teachers get between 100 to $100 per month.
And Cyrus, does that depend on educate, like their level of education, partly?
Yeah, that, but also higher classes like grade 7, those teachers, because the children have to sit national primary living examinations, we put a lot of emphasis there, and you have to always get the best teachers in the country, and those come at a cost. For us, $300 is a really high pay, because even as we speak, that is still a challenge where every month when the salaries come, you're worried if you're going to make ends meet properly to be able to pay them for the entire 4 months of the term. So it's still a challenge, and yet that is the kind of fee that they should get. And then 80% get between $120 to $150.
And is that a month, I think you said?
Yeah, per month. In the past, I think let's say 3 years ago, or even just 2 years ago, I would only be able to pay the teachers for 3 months. And then that month of the holiday, we as a school could not be able to pay even a single penny to the teachers. So that holiday month, they would have to look for something that would enable them survive. And that is several schools, even as we speak. We are now able to pay throughout the year, just barely, because we are charging a relatively high fee in Ugandan standards.
So how would that compare to teacher salaries at a public school, Cyrus?
In a public school, the fee is about $200 per month. And the beauty about a public school is that they get their salary throughout the year and it is paid by the government. The only challenge sometimes with the government public school is that maybe sometimes the salaries will take a little longer to come, maybe a month or two before it actually comes. But the advantage is that all the teachers are guaranteed to get their salaries eventually. For example, during COVID, most of the private schools actually closed because for 2 years we were unable to teach children, which meant that we didn't have income. So most of our schools were eventually taken by the banks because we were unable to pay the loans. And even when COVID ended, we were unable to come back from that big financial problem. But the public school teachers continued to get their salaries all throughout the COVID period. So much as public school is not the best to teach at, but you have the government assurance that your salary will eventually come, even if it takes sometimes 1 or 2 months before it reaches you.
And you have 100 students in your class.
Yes.
Okay, so Cyrus, I know at your school that you have one of the few computer labs or computer spaces in Uganda. Tell us about that.
Well, because of friends like the moderator Kami, we were able to reach out to them and they were able to eventually help us get several computers through their sponsorship. So our school is rated one of the best because currently we have about 40 or 50 computers. But even then, sometimes we get challenges where the CPUs, I think that's the term, get spoiled. You eventually, out of the 40 or 50 computers, are only able to use 15 computers. The budget for you to repair the computers may not be available. So you continuously tell the computer lab teacher that, well, we shall eventually save some money to ensure that all the children sit on a computer at a time, which is not the case right now. But in the public schools, 90% of all the public schools, let's say the free primary education schools, they would have a computer maybe only for the head teacher, and computer lessons are not something that they do in most of the schools. So ours is considered a high-end school because we have the computers. Even if the 50 computers are not working, but even having them be visible is already something that is viewed as something so big here in Uganda.
Now, the other thing, too, when we say you have 50 computers at your school in North America, we would assume that those computers are connected to the internet. But you're laughing, Cyrus is laughing, because I know at your school, you have those 50 computers. They are not connected to the internet. And so when you talk about the students using them, they would be using desktop installed Microsoft products or something.
Yeah, even the internet is hard to connect. For example, most of the computers that we were able to get, again, they used computers. We were getting them from agencies that were selling off their old stock. That is how we were able to.
Cyrus has had a power or an internet glitch, and so his part has dropped. Let's see if he comes back. Okay, you're back. That's great. We'll just keep telling us about your computers.
Yeah, so even we were only able to get those very old ones. So sometimes, even when you're able to get some kind of connection, you will find that most of them are not even able to connect on it. But even the Wi-Fi itself is not reliable, or even us affording it is sometimes very hard, because again, we are able to get an internet machine, but again, being able to pay for it every month became a bit costly. And many years have passed. We don't have that machine anymore. So sometimes we try to hotspot using our phones, but again, the data also goes so fast.
Right. So almost every teacher that I've spoken with, or the typical experience would be that if there is a computer at a school and a teacher wants to use the internet, they must
Yes.
hotspot from their personal device to access
Yes.
internet, even at school. And that seems to be not
Yeah.
uncommon.
Yes, and again, our school will be considered unique because we were able to eventually get all our teachers' smartphones from friends in Canada. So again, that makes our school a little unique because teachers, for example, are able to use AI through their phones, and they are able to make research on a few things which will not be possible in most public schools. I remember our last training with the moderator Kami. I myself, that was the first time I learned about ChatGPT, and I can't tell you how that has changed my life, because being the director and Pauline being the principal, the role of writing newsletters is majorly mine, and having to write a newsletter every beginning of term and end of term was quite challenging. But ever since we learned how to use ChatGPT, I think education and teaching has also become a little bit easier here in Uganda.
So, Cyrus, that's fascinating. And I remember vividly the room, and we were using ChatGPT for all sorts of things. And actually, so for some context, listener friends, that was the summer of 2023. So
Yes.
ChatGPT was very new anywhere. Most North American teachers hadn't experienced or used ChatGPT. So we were doing a training in Uganda for the teachers at Grand Maria School. We were mostly doing Microsoft training. We were hotspotting, trying to get the Wi-Fi to connect so that we could hotspot and use ChatGPT. We had quite an interesting demonstration there. Could you share with us maybe some other ways that you or your teachers are finding AI, generative AI, useful?
Well, I must tell you that until you come back, one of our biggest items is ChatGPT. Usually in Uganda, it's hard for us to venture into new materials because sometimes we've never heard of it. If someone doesn't come and teach you about ChatGPT, you may not know how to use it. But one other item that almost everyone is using in Uganda is that WhatsApp AI thing. I think it's also like ChatGPT, but it's in WhatsApp. Most people are actually using that because if you hadn't come to teach us about ChatGPT, we as a school would never know about it. But WhatsApp, which is almost on everyone's phone in Uganda, has that small AI chat thing. Most people are using that as well. Then, of course, in Uganda, we use Google so much. When we are doing research, most of the times we use Google and Yahoo. But Yahoo is slowly being phased away. Most of the time, we use Google when we are doing research, and that is with our smartphones.
So that is even a difference too, the ability to have most of your teachers access smartphones where they can then access the internet. They don't need a computer.
Yes.
So just out of curiosity, Cyrus, and I don't know if you know this, how many of your teachers would have an actual personal laptop? Like would a few of them, most of them, some of them have an actual laptop that they would use?
I have a staff of about 82 total. Of course, I have about 20 non-teaching staff and about 60 teaching staff. Out of those, I'm not mistaken, only about 5 have their own personal laptops because they are still expensive for us with the kind of income that we make from our teaching profession. It is hard to save 300, 400, or $500 that can go to a laptop because with the $300 or $150 that you earn as salary, you must pay house rent, you must pay school fees, your children must feed, they must be clothed, they must get shoes and all that. So for anyone to be able to save $300 or $500 to buy a second-hand laptop, it is next to impossible. Me
So
as a
that
director, the computer that I have was a gift from someone in North America. And yet, being the school director or school owner, you would think that I could be able to afford a laptop.
so those are again things that we take for granted, and to put that into perspective is very helpful for us. As we wrap up, Cyrus, what are maybe some of the biggest challenges that you see facing, maybe not even your school, but education in Uganda in general? And then what are some of the things that you're most hopeful for as you look at the future of education in Uganda?
Well, one of the biggest challenges Ugandan education industry, I think, for us is the small pay. Much as we say that $300 seems big in Uganda, or $150, you realize that you live on paycheck to paycheck. I know it's the same in the US or Canada, but when you hear the kind of salary that a teacher like you earns in Canada, your 1 month salary would be able to take care of a family like mine. Sorry,
It's
our
okay.
internet, our power. So phone blacked out, and then when I returned, it didn't have data. You know.
Well, why don't we wrap up then, Cyrus? We were just
All
talking
right.
about some of the challenges you were mentioning, of course, low salaries, and hopefully you can even talk about some of your big hopes for future in education, important
Yeah.
skills.
Yeah, one of the things that we would want to see in Uganda is where all schools have access to computers and technology, which can help us do things a little faster. One thing that I've tried to do at Grand Maria School is to encourage the teachers to do more smart things instead of doing things the way they thought they were supposed to be. For example, teachers in Uganda think or thought that you have to write all the school notes for a child on the whiteboard or blackboard for them to copy. But now I'm trying to create a way where our teachers can print out the work, which means they can cover the content much more faster and then be able to release the children on time. Now, when our children are in grade 6 and 7, they are about to do their primary living examinations. Teachers in Uganda tend to think that then the children should be studying from 6 a.m. up to 6 p.m. What I've been trying to teach my teachers is that by the time a child has been studying for 12 hours, there is little or nothing new they can still take in because they are tired. I was very excited about 2 weeks ago when my teachers came to me and they said, Mr. Muwanga, starting from this term, we are going to be letting our primary 7 and primary 6 children leave to go back home at 4 p.m. because they are now incorporating technology and AI and the availability of computers here and there to be able to do their work more efficiently, that by 4 a.m. they can let the children all go back to their homes. I was excited because I don't know if I'm right. I tried to share with them that in North America, schools.
So Cyrus and I are having a hard time finishing our conversation because of, surprise, surprise, internet issues, which can happen on either end. This time it happens to be internet issues coming from Uganda, but sometimes that's my case as well. Okay, you're back again.
Yes.
You left off talking about compared to schools in North America.
Yes, I don't know if I'm right. I was telling my teachers that schools in North America, I think, begin at about 8 a.m. and by 3 p.m. they are done. Am I right?
Yes, and some are earlier, but some can even, like, we have schools that don't start until 8:30, 8:45, but most are done by 3 or 3:30.
So I was sharing that with them, and then I said, but do you think that because they have less hours, they are then having less content or having less quality education? Once my teachers started having that kind of thought, that is why finally I am now able to have the entire school leave at 4 p.m. which is still a little too far for me. But at least I'm thankful that for now they've left 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. That is a start. I know in the next 2-3 years, as we continue to get more access to computers and more being knowledgeable about the AI and the different apps that we can use, I know we as Grand Maria School can come down to up to 3 p.m. and then actually also have quality education. So I am excited about the future. And on that note, I'm really thinking that maybe you should find some more time, maybe next year, for you to come once again and teach us anything new that you think has come up on the technological side.
Well, I have been to your school a few times to teach about things,
Yes.
including technology, and certainly
Yeah.
that would always be a great thing to come
Yeah.
back. So,
Yeah.
Cyrus, I'm so glad that we were finally able to connect and
Mm.
have this great conversation. Having been to your school and met your teachers, has been one of my favorite conversations because I have your campus in my mind and your
Yes.
people in my mind, and so I have so many great and fond memories of being at your school and working with you and Pauline. And so thank you so much for finally connecting, and I'm so glad we've been able to have this conversation.
Yeah, the pleasure was all mine, Cami. Thank you so much for hosting me.
You have been listening to Classrooms Beyond Borders. We hope this episode has offered a valuable perspective on education in a part of the world that may be very different from your own. I hope these conversations spark a desire to learn more about the world, to engage with global issues, and to consider how you can contribute to more equitable and just education for all. Check the show notes to see if there is a specific suggestion for supporting the school in this episode. Join us next time for another journey beyond borders to another classroom with another incredible teacher. Subscribe to Classroom Beyond Borders wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube.